I got to tell you, I don't exactly know what to say. So that's why we've got Cam Underwood from State of the U to provide the expert analysis and insight into Miami football following a, dare we say, disappointing, that's maybe to be kind, loss to Florida International. It's our 36th edition of Miami football. Duke is straight ahead as the regular season finale to try to finish above 500, both in the ACC and overall. Cam, how you doing today?
Yeah, Miami lost to FIU. Not good, Bob. Not good at all.
You left us a little trace of doubt last week. You were fully confident, I'm sure. They're a much better team. That can't be debated, even though they played on the field, and give FIU full credit for the victory, of course. But you left us with that just shred right there of Georgia Tech, 21-point favorite. We haven't arrived to where we can just jog out there and just throw it out there, and it's going to be fine. And that's what happened. It was 23-3 at one point.
Can confirm that is accurate. Yeah, I did say it. Just to leave the door open for the possibility of, just tanking another game against an inferior opponent. I know that FIU won. I'm not disputing that. There's no reason that Miami should have ever lost to FIU, whether it was this Saturday, next Saturday, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That is a team that you should never lose to, period. And yeah, it continues to be a struggle for Miami. You're 0-3 after bye weeks this year. You lose to Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and FIU in that order after bye weeks. You figure out a way to lose to a 1-win Georgia Tech team. Excuse me, I apologize. I thought I had that on mute. But you find a way to lose to a terrible Georgia Tech team who, after beating Miami, lost for a month straight until winning again this past weekend. So you even think, okay, well, Georgia Tech, they're going to, beat Miami and then another game. No, they lost to everybody else up until this last week. It is terrible. It is atrocious. It is unacceptable. The level of performance that we are seeing from the Miami Hurricanes, and to be outcoached again in that kind of a way, to have that kind of performance where you simply don't care. And I didn't, I said it last week on Friday, that we were on here saying, Miami should know by now. It's been proven and demonstrated that you cannot just go out there with a U on your chest or a Miami across the front wearing orange and green and white and saying, on the basis of that alone, we're just going to win in a walkover. You have to go out there and earn it. I remember, and I'm not even talking about very, very long ago, I remember when Miami would blow these teams out. Starters would play a half, and then you get the depth guys in there, and they're getting reps, and they're getting experience and things like that. Maybe it goes into the third or fourth quarter, but then you're still playing the second and third strings because you're blowing these teams out. But you went out there and did what you needed to do. And I've said this to you, Mark, for many, many years. When Miami does what Miami needs to do, everything is fine. This is another instance of Miami proving that they're not able to do what they need to do to play the way that they should play, finding ways to lose games to teams like this. It is terrible. And to the question that was on the screen, what's the latest on Justin Flo? There's been nothing reported, but it is hard for me to believe or think or consider that he's coming to Miami after that game on Saturday. It is a stretch of logic, of the imagination, of hope that I am not sure that I can do anymore. And I know that Justin Flo is probably down to, I've seen it reported or rumored that it was between Miami and Clemson, where Miami's pushing the city of Miami as a big thing in that recruitment. He's vibing with it. He's been down here, has family down here. Maybe, he's an LA kid thinking, or Upland is just outside of LA, but, you're thinking, that will be the connection that will bring him from the West Coast over here down to South Florida and things like that. Justin Flo, if you guys don't know, number 5 overall player in America, number 1 linebacker in this recruiting class. So, yeah, he's an elite player, as elite as it can get. It is hard to think that he would pick Miami now. And all of the good efforts that the win against Pittsburgh and Florida State and Louisville, all of that momentum that you had, you undid in a major catastrophic way. So 3 steps forward, 8 steps back with this loss to FIU. It's just absolutely terrible. What DeSchust put it as great as possible in this comment. What a disaster.
That's pretty much it in a football sense, of course. That's about what it is right now. And we've seen a few of these games where it felt like, okay, this is the low. This is the low. We harken back to the Virginia game from years ago that shut down the Orange Bowl, in which, ironically, this game was played on the same ground of sorts. And, of course, the Georgia Tech game was just this season, but it looked like this team had turned the corner, beating actually the better teams within the ACC on the schedule. Virginia, Louisville, Pitt. Those might be the 3 best teams that they played in the ACC, and they won those games. So they've shown us what they're capable of. They weren't dominant efforts, but they beat those teams fair and square. But if they don't show up, this is the result. So obviously Manny Diaz is the most accountable. He's responsible ultimately. But when you watching the game, reviewing the game, what unit, what portion of the team is most responsible?
Everyone. There is no one who was without blame, period. From the staffers to the assistants to the grad assistants to the receptionists at the Heck Athletic Center to the coaches to the players, starters, scout team. There is no one who was without blame, period. That is the kind of catastrophe that we saw. I even noted it in the good, the bad, and the ugly. Lewis Headley punted 3 times and had a 52-yard punt or per punt average. You're part of the problem because you're on the team. Football's a team sport. Sorry, buddy. The offense was atrocious. I don't know why Jaron Williams was not pulled from that game. At a time, he was 5 for 17. Actually, I have it still up. Jaron was 5 for 17, including 8 incompletions in a row and 2 interceptions built in there. That was about when it was 23-3. FIU leading the game, by the way. I don't understand why he was not pulled from that game. That was not good enough. You had thrown 3 interceptions in those 17 throws, 2 in the final 8, which were all incompletions. That's not to the standard. I don't care if it was Malik Rozier. I don't care if it was N'Kosi Perry. I don't care if it was Jaron Williams. You're not playing good enough. And the stats at the end, because Miami is down a lot, and so you have to throw, and eventually, they blew a couple coverages and you hit some guys, deep. The stats look a little bit better at the end. But what are we talking about? You know what I mean? And again, this is about Jaron Williams not doing the job. And I know that there's some people saying, Cam, well, you're just a N'Kosi Perry fanboy. I don't care who the other quarterback was that you insert into the game. All I know is Jaron Williams wasn't doing good enough. He wasn't playing well enough to stay on the field. And if it were N'Kosi Perry, if it were Malik Rozier, they would have gotten pulled. So to me, it's an imbalanced situation when you have a player who's clearly not playing well enough. And you're ignoring that to continue to play him. That's not, and I don't care if it's Jaron, I don't care if it's, D. Wiggins, who, you can say he quit on a route, but kudos to FIU for knowing this quarterback wants to run RPO slants. That's where he makes his money. That's where he his bread is buttered, by hitting those throws. So we're going to put a defender right in the way of that guy running that route. And D. Wiggins stopped on the first interception. He physically ran into the defensive back and said, oh, wait, there's not supposed to be a guy there. But the guy was there. So now what are you supposed to do as a wide receiver? Continue your route and make them call the pass interference. But you didn't do that. So then Jaron throws it directly to the guy. Then into triple coverage with no No window open at all. And I saw what happened. The linebacker took one step up and then stopped because you're reading him early and saying, oh, if he's coming downhill, that's where I'm going to pull it and I'm going to throw it. So FIU tricked them or tricked him into throwing those interceptions. But if FIU was, and they were, the 114th ranked running defense, rush defense in the country, why are you not running the ball, Danny knows? Not play action, not RPO, call an actual run play and run the ball. Why? Because they can't stop it. But no, you want to do those kind of things, right? Then you go quarterback power with a DJ Dallas lead block on 4th and goal from the 1. Now, Zion Nelson whipped his guy, threw him to the ground. Unfortunately, when he did that, the defender then went through DJ Dallas's legs, which took away the lead blocker. There were still 2 other guys out there. So even if DJ Dallas makes that block, there's still 2 other guys. And you know what? On that play, Mike Harley is in the slot, and nobody from FIU looked at him before, during, or after that play. Mike Harley could be standing in the end zone to this day, to this second right now, and nobody from FIU would have noticed yet 4 days later. But you don't have the advantage or the ability to alter the play, to do a side adjustment and say, hey, it's 4th and goal, and there's a guy over there that nobody's paying attention to, so I'm going to give him the ball. You don't do that. I don't understand how every team that Miami plays watches film, changes game plans to affect Miami offensively and defensively, and Miami has no answer. This is what I was talking about earlier in the year, how Miami comes out slowly every single game, almost all year long. How are you not prepared? How do you not see these things? If everybody knows that you're going to run RPO slants, maybe you have something else in there. And Danny Enos was talking about, Jaron Williams, his development can be, maybe we get to the 2nd or 3rd tier, the 2nd or 3rd option on these things. Maybe you run some plays to take advantage of the defense instead. And I'm not saying it is only Jaron's fault. I'm not saying it is only Dan Enos's fault. I'm not saying that, the rotation on defense and that last touchdown run, you have in a backup there, Gilbert Frierson. I think he's going to be a good player here, but you have a backup player at striker. He fills the wrong gap. Anthony Jones is out the back door. That's the touchdown, which was an FIU football, and their whole university is still celebrating it, saying this is the biggest touchdown in FIU history. This is the biggest moment in FIU history because you have 2nd string defenders in on a key play, and he fills a bad run gap fit, and then boom, the guy is gone. It is not only his fault. It is not only Blake Baker's fault. It is not only anybody's fault. It is everyone's fault.
Got a contribution here from J Love T. We appreciate it. Also, Mr. Nice Guy TV, DeAndre, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I'll remind everyone that Cam donates his time to us each and every week to make this show possible. So please contribute in a number of ways, like, comment, share the videos out there, but also the super chat is available. So thank you, J Love. We'll honor this question, certainly. Comments maybe J Love's referring to after the game. I don't know specifically, but you will, of course, in regards to Manny Diaz comments about the players.
Yeah, I mean, Manny's saying that there is not depth at Miami right now, or to the point where you have backups fighting for starting jobs. That's true. That's what we've said. Even if you look at the blue chip ratio, it's the cream of the crop is at the top of the roster. And the depth is not there. That championship caliber depth is not there on the roster. Everybody sees that. Everybody said that. Manny's not saying anything new. What he was saying is, when you have depth at every position, then you have younger guys fighting to start. And the easy comparison is like, 2001. Frank Gore is your 4th string running back. Frank Gore, who's now 3rd all time in NFL rush yards. You know what I mean? He's behind Clinton Portis and Willis McGahee, Najee Davenport, things like that. Miami's not there. And we know that. But that should not be what keeps Miami from beating FIU. That's the thing that everybody is ignoring. People are talking about, Cam, it's not about perfection. Apparently it is, because perfection was needed to beat FIU. What if you come out and play consistently every single week? This is what I was talking about. The Miami team that played against Louisville, they score 80, literally, because they already scored 52 against Louisville. They score 80 against FIU. If that same team with that same effort, motivation, dedication to excellence shows up, but they don't. So yeah, there is not championship caliber depth. So, Manny, it's on you then to get the guys who are game ready, who are your starting level players, who have been in ACC games, all ACC second to third team, maybe honorable mention, guys who have played and made big plays in big spots and big games here. It's your job to get them ready to play to that level. It is not necessarily. I mean, and yeah, you gotta be a self-starter. You got to be out there and not just BS around. You got to go out there. You got to make plays. But, Justin DeTavio, one of our guys, he says at State of the U, he says it all the time. He says your team will do one of two things: what you coach them to do or what you allow them to do. So you're either coaching them to be lackadaisical and give this half-ass effort, or you're allowing it. And I don't want to hear anything different. It's one of them two things. You can debate amongst yourselves, ye who are listening, which one it is. But no, I don't care the championship caliber depth. We did not lose to Alabama this week, guys. What are we talking about? Miami lost to FIU, and we're talking about not having championship caliber depth. With guys on their team who Miami recruited as like D-level options, fourth and fifth options on the recruiting trail. Guys who couldn't hold a jockstrap at Miami. Guys who dreamed of this moment because they were passed over, because they're not those kind of players. And this is what we're talking about. Do you see why I'm angry? Do you see why I am crazy here? That you are equating not having championship caliber effort or championship caliber depth to not being able to be successful against FIU football. I'm going crazy.
Miami is they're a program that expects much better, should, and I can understand the anger, the frustration, and everything that was displayed right there by any reasonable fan. Not expecting the world or leaps and bounds over what we saw last season, but expecting improvement and expecting that there not be letdowns against this kind of an opponent. That again, if you take, and it didn't really hit me until it came out of my mouth a few minutes ago, and then you expounded on it, that Miami's not a great football team. They're really not a very good football team right now, but they're a talented roster that on occasion, basically, again, within the conference, they took the three best opponents on the schedule: Virginia, Louisville, and Pitt. Those are, I don't think there's any question, those are the three best teams within the conference on the schedule, and they won those games. They weren't pretty. They weren't dominant, especially in two games. They barely scored 16 and 17 points, but their defense was dominant in those games. So they showed us in those games that they should win the Coastal Division. That if they show up, and every team's going to have a letdown or two during the season, but typically if they're as talented or there's that gap, they can usually get by, maybe not all the time. There are upsets that occur, but now this is, I made the statement last week that I was almost sure, without scanning the nation completely, almost positive that Miami was the only team in the nation that had lost two games in which they were at least a 2-touchdown favorite. Now they've lost three games in which they were at least a 2-touchdown favorite. In two of those, a 20-plus point favorite.
There's 4 games that Miami has not been within 2 scores of the line. There's 3 games now that Miami has not been within 3 scores of the line. Miami beats this season Bethune-Cookman. I know they're an FCS team, but they're like an 8-win team at their level. Central Michigan rebounded really well this year under Jim McElwain. That's a 7-win team. Miami beat them. Virginia, currently ranked 20th when we played them. That's a good team. Pittsburgh, that's a winning team. Florida State, dumpster trash, but whatever. But still, they're a bowl-eligible team now. Louisville, that's a developing team. That's a winning team. Right, exactly. So these are the teams that Miami has beaten. Go look at the teams that Miami's lost to. FIU, trash. Georgia Tech, trash. North Carolina and Florida, and this is where I went back and just went through the schedule, because the stat that I saw is Miami has not lost to a sub 500 team this year. But you have Florida and North Carolina in their respective season openers. So that kind of skews it. So those teams, I mean, North Carolina decidedly average, but Miami average to bad. And Florida, is a top 15, 10-ish team. But you lose by a field goal, played decently well. Yeah, there were things to work on, like the offensive line. But Miami just continues to find, Virginia Tech was on the verge of firing Justin Fuente before you saved his job, just like Al Golden used to save Mike London's job at Virginia previously by losing to a bad team then. It is just confounding to see the kind of inconsistency with, you're talking about potentially ending the season on a 6-game winning streak. You had 3, you had a bye week. You could have 2 here. You're not going to the ACC championship game. Then you can win a bowl game against a, mid-tier, upper-tier, opponent. You're, tweeting about recruiting as Manny Diaz and the whole staff. You're doing all of these things. But again, 3 steps forward, 10 steps back. Like, this game is, the loss to FIU is so gigantic in a huge way. And I cannot overstate how poor that is and how badly Miami finds ways to play. And even just in the last half of this season, Virginia Tech was about to fire Justin Fuente. You turn the ball over 4 times in the first 22 snaps, spot them a 28-point lead, and you lose that game. Georgia Tech is still garbage, and you find a way to lose that game. You lose to FIU, terrible. As Mr. Wright says, they gave up 400 yards rushing alone to FAU the week before and getting blown out by 30 points. It is terrible. It is terrible. It is terrible. And the analogy that I use for this, Manny Diaz, for part of this, I'm going to get to the flopping in a second. The Manny Diaz noted yesterday in his Monday pressers that he's trying to change things up during the bye weeks to change the performance. He said he's already changed things in both of the second and third bye weeks of this year. So you lose to North Carolina after one bye. You change things before the Virginia Tech week. In that bye, you lose again. You change things before of FIU, and you lose again. When I was a first-year teacher, and I was starting out and trying to figure out my way, leading a program for the first time, stepping up into the big job, I did not even have a bag of tricks or tricks in the bag of tricks. I didn't even have a bag to put tricks in. We are seeing Manny Diaz in that same way. It's not even that he can go to another thing. Oh, I'm going to try that. I don't know where he's getting it from, but I mean, he needs professional development, obviously. But he doesn't even have a bag to put the tricks in that he can go and try. And the only other person on the staff who's been a head coach before at the college level is Todd Stroud. Who are you talking to? Where are you getting your advice from? Who can come into the office and say, hey, Manny, when you remember, and this is part of being a first-time head coach, not even first year, first-time head coach. Who can come into the office and say, when I was at Middle Tennessee State as head coach, this, when you remember when you coached elsewhere, or who can come and say that? Nobody. There's no one on the staff literally who has that kind of experience. So I don't care whether it's mentoring. I don't care whether it's Miami, and obviously it's a private school, so the numbers are different, but Miami following the Alabama route and saying we're going to hire some of these head coaches who are out of work as analysts or something and bring them in. You know what I mean? I don't know where it's going to come from, but professional development is definitely needed, because 6-5 with this schedule this year, with this roster, with this talent, it is fireable. And I mean, look, Manny Diaz is not going to get fired, but if some assistants aren't gone after this year, and assistants plural, Manny Diaz is going to be on a short leash moving forward. Watch. Now, the other thing, and I saw that question, it is deplorable the level to which Butch Davis decided to stoop both in coaching his players to fake injuries, and you saw it on the screen, that was coached directly from the sideline. Every single player who went down grabbed the same hamstring. So you're telling me that only their right legs are the ones that have injuries? I don't care the bullshit that you put on the injury report. That was absolutely false. I don't care. And the announcer said it. There's a strongly worded aversion to doing things like this in the rule book, but there's no penalty for it. And I mean, if there's no penalty, then who cares that there's a strongly worded aversion? It's absolutely Bush League. It's absolute bullshit that you do that you fake injuries repeatedly to stop Miami when Miami's offense is moving. Then guys hop up, do, backflips and cartwheels like they're Simone Biles coming off the field, sprinting like they're Deion Sanders running a 4.18 or something immediately after. Oh, I'm good now. Cool. Got it. But the thing to me that pissed me off even more, when asked directly about it, I'm not even mad that Butch Davis, that he lived the lie to the point where he's saying, well, check our injury report. These guys have injuries. A hamstring injury is a soft tissue injury. That's the injury that you say when you're a lazy player and you don't want to run sprints. You know what I mean? Oh, my hamstring. Well, it's not torn. I can't really, but I mean, it's sore, coach, so I can't run. So miss me with that, Butch Davis. But to equate you absolutely bullshit directing your players to fake hamstring injuries, equating that and saying, oh, well, the fans booed when we did that, but we didn't boo when DJ Dallas dislocated his elbow. No, sir. Absolutely not. I'm not going to curse on here anymore. I apologize for my language. But that was an injury, a legitimate injury that everybody saw. You're at the game. You saw it on the big screen. I was at home. I'm watching it on my television. You saw DJ Dallas's elbow get dislocated. You saw his arm in a disfigured state. But you are going to equate you having your players intentionally fake injuries to that actual occurrence? Butch Davis, you can go to hell.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our Miami broadcast each and every week. It's floating around week to week based on schedules from Cam and myself. So we hope that you appreciate Cam's time in delivering the best in Miami football content and analysis right here. And of course, check out the work over at stateoftheu.com. State of the U, it's the SB Nation platform for Miami athletics and basketball season starting, football, Duke, and a bowl game. And much analysis, I'm sure, concerning what has transpired over the last 11 games of a team that went 7-5, lost a bowl game last year. Mark Richt, of course, retiring, and Manny Diaz taking over. And most people, I would think the polls were out there and were pretty of a consensus nature. Miami fans being pleased with Manny Diaz being hired initially. I don't know what they would state right now. A lot of people obviously in the chat angered by the performance this week and at other points during the season, Georgia Tech, etc., want him gone, or want, as you've mentioned, with the coordinators and the other coaches, maybe going that route offensively or defense, or maybe Manny Diaz takes over the defense next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but, to the point, actually, we, have the fan voting over on State of the U and SB Nation, the fan pulse, and Miami's confidence score of the fans who vote in this weekly plummeted this week. So after being 97.7% confident or pleased in the direction of the program after the Louisville game, that confidence rating is at 15.2% currently. So I know that it's not necessarily emblematic of everyone, but it is not a far stretch of imagination to believe that most people are displeased with what we have seen. Even people who may have thought that this season would not have been as successful as I did. I mean, again, you lost to FIU. I don't want to hear about, and the comparisons that people are making are so asinine. People talking about, oh, well, Ed Orgeron lost to whomever at LSU.
Troy.
Yeah. Troy was a better team then and now than FIU, first of all. Second of all, what happened after that? They beat a ranked Florida team. They beat a ranked Auburn team. Then they go back to the drawing board and they update the offense into the spread beast monster system that you're seeing now, because they said what we're doing is not working. So we're looking for answers. You know what I mean? However, Miami and Manny Diaz wants to say, oh, well, it worked once before, so we're just going to do this same thing and not use the space, that we can create for our skill position players. You know, these guys who play spread offense pretty much from Optimus ball up. You know, we're not going to do that kind of a thing. And look, you can spread to run. You know, people made fun of Justin DeTavio and our website, State of the U, last year when evaluating offensive coordinator candidates. And he wrote a wonderful piece about Sean Gleason, the former offensive coordinator at Princeton, who had the Princeton offense doing numbers. He gets hired over at Oklahoma State. You know, Oklahoma State has the number 15 rush offense in America right now. Their running back is almost at 2,000 yards, 1,823 with 20 tutties. You had Tylan Wallace as a wide receiver. So when you want to bring that other defender down or into the box to stop the run, what are we doing? Going over the top. That's innovative kind of offense. That's a guy that Miami could have hired. That's a guy who would have fit into using space and still running the ball effectively. Number 15 rush offense in America, bro. This is not, every spread system is not the Mike Leach throw it 80 times a game. No, Rick Scott, I will not calm down. I'm angry. I'm pissed off. I'm not accepting this because on so many levels it is complacency. So it is everything is, it is not as hard as they're making it out to be. And it boggles my mind that we are still doing the same things over and over and over and expecting different results. And I'm talking from a schematic way. Yeah, we brought in some new coaches. We brought in, okay, fine. But you brought in the new coaches to do the same thing. And not only that, you do the same thing, but you do it worse than it was done as the problem with the previous staff. Miami is dead last in third down conversions, 27.13%. Dead last in America, 130th out of 130. You know who converts more than the next team up, 129 out of 130? Akron. Akron is 0-11 this year, 27.37, I believe, percent conversions. So the actual worst team in America, overall, their record, their point differential, all these different kind of things. The worst team in America converts third downs better than the Miami Hurricanes for the season. 1 out of 10 against FIU. And actually, because I leave the stats open for this very reason, if we have third downs, these are the distances of third downs. Let's see. 3rd and 6, you complete a 4-yard pass. 3rd and goal, incomplete. 3rd and 1, no gain. 3rd and 10, incomplete. 3rd and 2, that's your one conversion. 3rd and 2, incomplete. 3rd and 12, sack. 3rd and 10, incomplete. 3rd and 4, complete for 3. 3rd and goal, loss of 2. So you're not even having 3rd and forever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your 10 third downs were 6 yards or less. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing?
So I referenced this LSU team the other day as well because, the Troy game was brought up to me following the Miami game on Saturday, and I've got it right in front of me. But I remembered these games, and I just remembered that LSU rebounded. They beat 2 top 10 teams that year, Florida, Auburn. You mentioned that. And they came within a whisker beating Notre Dame in a bowl game that would have elevated them to 10-3. They still finished 9-4 and number 18 in the country. So that's pretty typical LSU or even lower end LSU performance. So that game was an embarrassment for the team. Certainly an SEC power losing to Troy, but that was a 10-3 Troy team that won a bowl game. And that was an aberration for the season. It was a complete aberration.
Thank you.
They lost to Notre Dame in the last second of the
Thank you.
Citrus Bowl. They made a Citrus Bowl game. They won 9 games. They finished in the
Right.
top 20. So
But
it
we're
was an
seeing
aberration.
right. But again, and that's an aberration. That's a 10-win Troy team, like you're talking about. That team is miles and miles better than FIU. There is no comparison on that. And for Miami, this is not the aberration. This is the rule. Georgia Tech, FIU, same kind of caliber team, and you lose to both of them. No, it is not the same. And I'm tired of people making these arguments just because they look at the name on the schedule. So they say, okay, let me go find a team who lost to a G5 team. Let me find anybody any year. Oh, LSU lost to Troy. Go look back. Just like Mark said, that's a 10-win Troy team. They lose on the last second play to Notre Dame in the bowl game. That LSU team was still 9-4. Miami is not any of that at all. And again, you're doing this with more talent than anybody in any team that you're playing, except for Florida and Florida State this entire year. And you're blowing this pillowy soft schedule. I mean, like.
My apologies to Troy. They went 11-2.
Oh,
that
even
was off the top of
better.
my head. They went 10-3. They went 11-2. They won the Sun Belt Conference. They lost a very competitive game against Boise State that year. Obviously, we know Boise State and what they can do, and they wiped out the rest of their conference, and they won a bowl game by 20 points.
So I say all of that to say, miss me with any comparison to LSU losing to that Troy team. That ain't it. That was one of the best G5 teams in the country that year. That's like the more analogous thing would be for LSU losing to that Troy team would be, I don't know who's better than South Carolina, but a South Carolina losing to this current year's App State, because that team is a good team. FIU is not. And Miami found a way to lose to them. You should be as disgusted as I am. And instead of telling me to calm down, you should be more angry.
Catching up on the super chats, Rodney King 06, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate it. He just said, love the content, keep it going. So we appreciate, even if you don't have a specific question, the super chat contribution is much appreciated. WJP, almost 20 years of letdowns. When will it end? Somebody had commented, rest in peace, looking at 1980, which was really, people look at 83 as the emergence of Miami football. But if you looked at 1980, that was a fringe top 10 team that beat, I believe, Virginia Tech in a bowl game. That was really the emergence of Miami football being a national power. And he put the cap on it at 2005.
Yeah, and one of our writers, a new guy at State of the U, Drew Maglio, who's actually doing really good work. He's writing a series talking about, the RIP, the death of Miami football as a national brand. And the first installment was, talking about how it went from 80 to 2005. And the second installment in that series is due up tomorrow. And he makes some good cases. So I urge you to go over to stateoftheu.com and check it out, because yeah, and I mean, there's plenty other commentary as well. Justin DeTavio wrote a piece. I just put up a video about that. But basically, if you remember the Titans, the movie, when the Bertier and I forget, Wood Harris, he played Avon Barksdale on The Wire, when they're going back and forth, and he says, oh, that's the worst attitude I've ever heard. He says, okay, attitude reflect leadership, Captain. That was pretty much the heart and soul of the piece that that Justin DeTavio just wrote. Our guy Kappa Kane, he wrote a piece of analysis as well. I mean, there is no shortage of commentary of a variety of viewpoints for you to engage with on State of the U. So, and miss me with Bama losing to UL Monroe. If you think that this loss to this team is going to yield the same result, you're crazy. Nick Saban already had a national championship when he went over there. He had the best recruiting class almost of all time coming in that year already. Yes, it was a bad loss, but it's not. Whatever. Y'all can keep making these faulty analogy comparisons if you want to. I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm done. No.
Bama had about a 5-year span in which they bottomed out for them.
When Mike Shula was there, yeah.
Yeah, and then they hired Mike Price. If anybody remembers that situation, Mike Price was successful taking Washington State to a Rose Bowl, got the Bama job. He had an issue with a stripper and credit cards and all sorts of issues.
Oh, that's right.
So they churned over a couple coaches, and Mike Price never stepped on the field for them. So they had one of those off-season, you got a coach, you fire a coach, you hire a coach, you got to fire him for misconduct, then you got to hire another coach to bring him in. So he never even stepped on the field. So they had some issues right in there, but that produced a 4-9 in there and a 6-7 with still a bowl game, of course. But it also had sandwiched in there a 10-2 with a Cotton Bowl win and a top 10 finish. So 4-9, 6-6, 10-2, 6-7, 7-6. Nick Saban's first year. That was the lull between 03 and 07.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, look. We can go cherry pick any good team that has lost to a substandard opponent. We can do all of that. That's fine. I'm not going to engage in any of those anymore because that is a correlation, not causation. So that Florida lost to Georgia Southern. Well, Florida was terrible. Sure, fine. They've turned it around. But again, correlation, not causation. We can list all of these times that a team has lost to a substandard opponent. That is all that they have in common. That is it. That is the correlation part. The causation that you're faultily trying to say is because they lost this. Now they use that to come from the ashes as the Phoenix, to be reborn into the LSU, Alabama, whomever that we see now. That is faulty. That is incorrect. So if you want to make these analogies and connections, that is correlation, that they lost a game at a time to a bad team. The other part of that being whatever moving forward, that is faulty causation and wrong.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We bring you Miami football talk each and every week with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Join in the fun over there. That's
ain't no fun right now.
An operable word that doesn't necessarily apply right now. But who knows with this Miami team who's going to show up against Duke to try to finish this season off at 7-5 and even at least salvage a winning regular season. That would be a very lopsided regular season in which they might have played their most competitive game in a loss against Florida, top 10 team, roughly.
Yeah.
And then they beat the three best teams on their ACC schedule and lose to Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech when they were extremely down. And now the Hokies are playing for a division championship. And as you said, who knows if they lose that game against Miami, as they should have as a 14-point underdog, what their season could have turned into. But that catapulted them a resurgence for Justin Fuente. So maybe he's sending a Christmas card to Manny Diaz this year.
Yeah, again, like I said, and I wrote it at the time, and I've said it consistently since. Losing that game to Virginia Tech saved Justin Fuente's job the same way that losing to Virginia for 3 straight years with Al Golden saved Mike London's job. Just is what it is.
So we've got a number of recruiting questions, just people tossing names out. So I'll give you a batch here.
Let's go. We can go rapid fire. I'm good with it.
Tyler Van Dyke, in regards to him and his commitment wavering, possibly.
Nope.
Avante Williams.
Nah, that ship has sailed.
Jalen Knighton.
I thought that I heard he was on campus on Sunday for practice. Looks like he's still locked in with Miami. I believe that one of the bat signals from Manny Diaz on Friday or Saturday before the game was for Jalen Knighton, his commitment or his silent commitment. But I would like it if instead of silence, he went public with that.
Jay Love, thank you so much for the second contribution on the Super Chat. We remind you that Cam donates his time here each and every week to talk Miami football with us and deliver the best in analysis. I I don't know if you're going to be able to take off on this one, but I would be interested if you do, if there's anything there that you did not address, Cam. Hurricane Alazzo asking about the Manny presser, either this week or after the game, and if there's anything more that you can expound on that.
No, that was the Monday presser, and I didn't see it live just because of professional obligations. But I came home and I listened to the Joe Rose show, the morning radio show that he does every Monday. I listened to that, and then I watched him and the coordinators their pressers. Yeah, no, I have a live tweet string of those. It was. I mean, I'm just flabbergasted. You talk about, Manny Diaz. Again, he's proving himself to be a fish out of water. Like the job is too big right now for him. And he's like, I got to do this different or that, or, and that's where he mentioned the thing about the depth that we spoke about and things like that. I mean, it was all over the place. And I mean, I get it because the season's all over the place, but, I just don't. No, I mean, I don't remember it categorically like that, just because we've been talking about so many things. I've written things and listened to other things and, whatever, recorded my other podcasts that I do. Locked on Canes. You should check it out, by the way. But I mean, there wasn't a lot to like, basically. But I mean, again, after you lose to FIU, there's not going to be lots to like. Andy K, I'm shocked because Miami lost to FIU for the first time ever. That's why I'm shocked. Why are you guys not getting this?
All right. I'm going to change the course just a little bit. Let you know that we've got Miami Moneyball available to you. If you're into fantasy football, if you're into stats, go to MiamiMoneyball.com, and I will throw myself on the screen. That was my intention at the time, to give Cam a break. But MiamiMoneyball.com, and of course, subscribe to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And I've got so many banners here, it's difficult to find them, just like it is with the comments. So keep in mind, I'm trying to get to as many comments as possible and trying to weigh the conversation that you're having with yourselves. Anytime I leave those alone, if they don't make sense to post to the screen, I'm going to leave those comments alone. If you're having conversation between yourselves in the live chat, that's great. Continue to do it. I'm not going to post those, but I try to get each and all reasonable comments to the screen, amusing comments, insightful comments, questions, and so forth to the screen. And I try to leave them up for a reasonable amount of time that people can look at them, but I try to keep it going to wade through them as well. Also, keep in mind, once I post a comment or there are other comments made, sometimes the screen resets on me and I got to go back and find where I am. And it's a little bit more difficult than what you see on YouTube here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Miami football talk each and every week. Yes, we are jumping around, but Cam has his obligations outside of here as well as I do. So it's very difficult. I have a number of people that ask me, get this person, get that person. Why isn't this person back on? And many times, most times, I rarely have anybody that doesn't want to appear, but matching up schedules is extremely difficult with my schedule in particular, and then other professional schedules out there and personal lives and so forth. So always keep that in mind. All right. Duke's front and center now, and it's back to the ACC, and it's a team, Cam, that has been up and down themselves. I don't even know what their record is, and that's not like me. But I'm guessing they're like 6-5. That would be my shot in the dark guess on Duke football right now. That both teams are 6-5 right now.
4-7.
Miami, pardon me.
4-7.
They're 4-7. Man, I
Five-game
remember
losing
them
streak.
beating Virginia Tech 45-10, and I don't think I've paid any attention since then.
Yeah, they're 1-6 since that game.
Okay, there you go. That sent Virginia Tech in another direction. They, to their credit, bounced back. I cut a video, posted a video about Justin Fuente's tenure right after that 45-10 debacle, because he started off 9-4, 10-4 ACC championship game appearance. First few games of the next season, they went like 3 or 4-0, and he was off to like a 23-8 start. And since then, it was like sub 500 for about 15 or 16 games, and then they get drubbed by Duke by 35, which it's no embarrassment typically to lose to Duke, but by 5 touchdowns, and then they turn it around and they're sitting at I would have never guessed it, even with their soft schedule, 8-3. And this is what we've got. We've got a 1-game Coastal Division championship game in the state of Virginia, of all places.
Yep. And again, that's born out of the fact of Miami not doing what Miami needed to do. So they traveled to Durham to play Duke. I don't know if we're going to hear a la Randy Shannon about the long walk from the locker rooms to the field at Duke. If you look it up, it is actually like, it's a walk, but Randy Shannon brought that up as a reason why Miami lost to Duke back in the day. So that's a none too fun memory and everything. But yeah, and who knows what Miami team is going to show up on Saturday. I think maybe we could win. Maybe we blow them out, because when Miami, has their back against the wall and has to prove and has to dig and has to work, they play well. But, when they're expected to win, Manny Diaz has not found a way to get that kind of performance from his team. So who knows? Maybe the team that played against FIU shows up. Maybe the team that played against Virginia or Louisville shows up. I don't know. It'll be like a grab bag. It'll be that mystery flavor Starburst. So we just open the wrapper and just put it in our mouth, and we'll figure out what's going on later.
Would you start Williams or Perry at quarterback?
I mean, you're going to stick with Williams because, again, he heated up towards the end of the game, threw 2 touchdowns later in the game. Jeff Thomas was not targeted until Jaren's 27th throw. The stats have him listed as being targeted earlier, but that's wrong because I went back and I watched every single throw just to be sure I was right about that. I don't understand why it took till the 27th throw of the game for him to get targeted. But hey, maybe you could be a little bit more successful if you give it to, you try to throw the ball to your good players. But he went, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 11 for his last 14, I want to say, with 2 touchdowns for Jaren. That's very, very good. Obviously, it unfortunately came a little bit after, the 5 for 17 start. Which is not good. But Manny Diaz has been intractable about the fact that Jaren Williams is the starting quarterback, and absent injury, that's who's going to play.
All right, Canes bot, hit the like button. That's homework number 1, or in class work per se. Everybody should do that. At least hit the like button, because, hey, as is explained to me, the algorithms of YouTube respond very well to that simple act. The mouse click, like the video. Got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U, talking Miami football each and every week. This is our 36th edition, although we've had Cam on, I'm guessing, over 100 times talking Miami football for the last 5 or 6 seasons, going back to the Louisville Bowl game, Teddy Bridgewater and company, Russell Athletic Bowl. Bowl projection now.
We
had illusions of grandeur last week. Orange Bowl, USC.
As being possible. Yeah. They were then. Now, and it's fine. I was actually earlier going to look up the ACC Bowl placement order again. Just because it has changed. So, yeah, it's going to, there it goes. Miami Bowl options for 2019. Oh, written by Cam Underwood. He's a great guy. So CFP is out. New Year's 6 is out. Camping World is probably out. So, you're looking at tier 1 bowls. So Belk, Sun Bowl, Pinstripe Bowl, Franklin American, Mortgage, the Music City Bowl, Tax Slayer, Gator Bowl, or, sliding into that tier 2, Military, Independence, Quick Lane, Gasparilla, Birmingham bowls. I think that at this point, it's going to be maybe, it will take I don't know what it would take to be selected for maybe the Gator Bowl or one of those tier 1 bowls. So now you're looking back at, some of these other places, the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, one of the worst places I've ever been in my life. Just that I did see, like Tori Evans said, that there was a projection of Miami versus Navy in a bowl game. I don't want that at all, just because that's that darn, flex bone triple option system. Not even that, like, I'm scared to play Navy, because I'm not scared to play anybody. Respect all opponents and fear none. But apparently, I'm the only one who respects them. The team doesn't respect them. That's why you go out and you lose to bad teams. I just don't want to deal with playing that system again, because just like when it was at Georgia Tech with Paul Johnson, it's not the athletes, it's the scheme that you have to contend with then. And I just don't want that, because nobody runs that. Nobody plays that. That's not going to prepare you for anything moving forward. So you're going to use your bowl prep time on something that you're only going to use this one time, that doesn't have any carryover into any other game. I don't want to see Navy for that reason. So anybody who's listening, say, "Oh, Cam, so he doesn't want to see Navy. Oh, y'all scared." Da, 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 da. Open your ears, clean that wax out, and listen to me again. I don't want to play them, because preparing for that scheme is a singular, insular thing. It doesn't have any carryover to anything else. So, yeah, but unfortunately, yeah, you're probably looking at one of those tier 2 ACC placement bowls. So turn up.
I've said that many times about scheduling the service academies. Maybe on one level, you can make it a week of, outside of the actual football preparation, honoring Army, honoring Navy, that sort of thing, and maybe enlightening your kids to some responsibilities that other young men have. But in regards to a football preparation, yes, it's a waste of time to schedule them in the regular season, or this is a time to prepare your team for spring practice and get those young players reps. And it's just isn't applicable to anything else you're going to do defensively.
Right. It's not. So you're teaching techniques that you're going to use once. It's cramming for a test. I don't need the knowledge. I just need to be able to pass this test and then move forward. Like, what does that do for you? Not much. Also, as somebody just tweeted and I retweeted while we were talking, I would like to play a regular-ish team, who runs a spread or a pro style, just so that we can work on our fundamentals as the Miami Hurricanes, because Miami's 14 games away from playing Alabama in the season opener for 2021. You need every second to get better at doing what we do, because that's a monster over there. And I'm sorry to inform y'all, but that's still going to be a monster when Miami plays them in Atlanta in September of 2021. So you need every second that you can to develop yourselves to be ready for that. That's all I can say on that one.
The last 2 Navy appearances, and I wanted to verify this because this was at the top of my head, against the ACC, turned out to be in Navy's favor. Just last season, or 2 seasons ago, they beat Virginia 49-7 in the Military Bowl. And 2 years prior to that, they beat Pitt in the Military Bowl as well, 44-28. It would be my recollection of Navy football in bowl games is that if teams are able to use that athletic advantage, that Navy on occasion gets annihilated, but then teams typically struggle and it becomes some ugly game.
That last one, the 49-pointer, I remember that game because they scored on the first 7 drives, and that 7th touchdown and 7th drive of the game came in the 4th quarter. Like, it was just, it was 4 yards, take 40 seconds, 4 yards, take 40 seconds, 3 yards, up. That's 11, so that's a first down, and we're just going to keep bleeding clock. I mean, it was a crazy, crazy performance. They couldn't get them off the field and everything. And again, more than the win and loss, like, if you're a fan of the Miami Hurricanes, you have to be invested in a process for development right now, because obviously the performance is not there. So you need the process to get a proper result. And again, just playing a Navy in a bowl game that has no value other than that week, I want to play somebody with a scheme or a system that at least reinforces what we do to get back to the basics of how Miami plays defense, how Miami runs offense, and to move forward. So you can spin that into the spring. So you can take that into the fall, into the 2020 season and beyond. Not something that's just a single, it's a single use thing. It's a K cup for coffee. You just make it, you brew it, you throw it out. That's what, playing against Navy would be. And it's just not what I personally want to see. But, it's not like Miami's going to turn down any bowl game that they get, nominated or selected by. So here we sit.
All right, folks, I am off to cover all sorts of teams: Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Georgia, Georgia Tech. We've got our Florida State live show tonight, and I will wrap up the college football rankings with my reaction a little bit later tonight as well. Cam, we appreciate you stopping by, breaking it down as only you can.
I do my best. Thanks for listening. Find me on Twitter at Underwood Sports. You can follow the website at stateoftheu.com. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we're at The State of the U. Come on over and fan with us because rain or shine, good or bad, bleed orange or green, so I'm a Miami Hurricane.